edge of the small, forgotten town of Red Hollow, there lies a lake so tranquil, so still, that it seems almost out of place. It is a beautiful, glassy expanse of water, surrounded by thick woods that offer an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Locals refer to it simply as Deadwater Lake, but they never speak of it openly, and no one swims in its depths anymore. There are whispers that anyone who dares to dip their toes in the water will be pulled down by ghostly hands, vanishing forever beneath the surface. But to outsiders, the lake is simply a picturesque spot, perfect for camping, fishing, and swimming. At least that's what Rebecca, Tom, and their group of friends thought. They had heard rumors about the lake's dark past, but like any good urban legend, they brushed it off as just another local superstition. Excited for a weekend getaway, the 5 friends made their way to Red Hollow, ready to escape the pressures of city life and enjoy some peaceful time in nature. As they drove closer to Deadwater Lake, the road grew narrower, the trees denser, casting long shadows over the dirt path. The town of Red Hollow, where they stopped for supplies, was a quiet, almost ghostly place. The few locals they encountered gave them strange, lingering looks when they mentioned where they were headed. A shopkeeper, Old Mary, visibly paled when Rebecca asked for directions to the lake. "You kids going to Deadwater?" Old Mary muttered, her hands shaking as she packed their groceries. "Don't stay out there after dark, and for heaven's sake, stay out of the water." Tom laughed it off, thinking the old woman was just trying to spook them. But as they left the store, a creeping sense of unease settled over Rebecca. The warning felt more like a plea. Still, they pressed on. By late afternoon, they arrived at the lake, and it was just as beautiful as they had imagined. Crystal clear water reflecting the orange hues of the setting sun, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to watch their every move. They set up their tents along the shore, eager to relax and enjoy the weekend. The air was cool and still, but an unnatural silence hung over the place. No birds chirped, no insects buzzed. It was as if the lake had swallowed all sound. As night fell, the group gathered around a fire, roasting marshmallows and telling ghost stories. But the mood was lighter than expected, with Tom cracking jokes and the others laughing at how ridiculous the local legends were. Rebecca, though, felt a chill she couldn't shake. Her eyes kept drifting toward the water, where the moonlight shimmered eerily across the surface. Just as she was beginning to relax, Sarah, one of their friends, stood up and tossed a rock into the lake. The stone skipped across the water before sinking with a soft splash. "See, just a normal lake," Sarah said with a grin. Then, before anyone could stop her, she started walking toward the water, peeling off her shoes. "Sarah, don't," Rebecca warned, her voice tense. "Seriously, let's just stay by the fire." But Sarah laughed, already wading into the shallow water. "You guys are way too paranoid. It's just a lake," she called over her shoulder, her feet sinking into the soft sand beneath the surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, as Sarah stood waist deep in the lake, her laughter died in her throat. Her eyes widened and a look of pure terror spread across her face. "Guys, something's..." she started, but her voice was cut off by a sudden, violent pull downward. Sarah screamed as she was yanked beneath the water, her arms flailing as if fighting against an invisible force. The others rushed to the water's edge, shouting her name. But she was already gone, swallowed by the lake's depths. The water had returned to its unnerving stillness, as if nothing had happened. Panic gripped the group. Jake, the strongest among them, tried diving in to save her, but no matter how deep he swam, there was no sign of Sarah. He surfaced, gasping for air, his face pale. "She's gone," he whispered, his voice shaking. Desperation turned to terror. They searched for hours, calling Sarah's name, but the lake remained silent, the dark water reflecting the moon like a haunting mirror. Exhausted and terrified, they gathered back at the campsite, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The night dragged on, but no one could sleep. Every sound, every whisper of wind through the trees sent chills down their spines. And then, just as the sky began to lighten with the first hints of dawn, Rebecca heard it, a soft voice, barely audible, calling from the lake. "Help me." Her heart froze. It was Sarah's voice, faint and pleading. Rebecca scrambled out of her tent, rushing to the water's edge. The lake was calm, but just beyond the shore, a figure was emerging. Sarah, her body wet and pale, her clothes clinging to her like they had been soaked for hours. She walked slowly, her eyes wide with fear, her lips trembling. "Help me," she whispered again, reaching out toward Rebecca. Without thinking, Rebecca took a step forward, her hand outstretched. But something wasn't right. Sarah's movements were too stiff, too unnatural. And then Rebecca saw it, the pale, ghostly hands reaching up from the water, gripping Sarah's ankles, pulling her back. Rebecca stumbled backward, horrified, as more hands emerged from the lake, dozens of them, all translucent and pale, pulling Sarah back into the depths. Sarah's face twisted in agony, but her voice remained soft, barely a whisper. "Help me." By the time the others rushed to Rebecca's side, Sarah had disappeared once again, dragged back into the abyss by the ghostly hands. The group fled that morning, abandoning their campsite in fear. But the nightmare wasn't over. As they sped down the narrow dirt road, they noticed the lake was following them, its reflection in every puddle, every glance in the rearview mirror. And in those reflections, they could see Sarah's face, still calling out for help, her ghostly figure surrounded by those terrible, grasping hands. Now, no one ever returned to Deadwater Lake, and the few who knew the story of what happened that night in Red Hollow said it was as if the lake itself had claimed them, one by one. Rebecca, Tom, and their friends were never seen again.